So, Tony, harnessing the oceans, is that a viable form of energy?
Well, it's a very viable form of energy. The problem is that, is it viable for Bermuda? And one would think that one of the problems we have here is the current flow isn't very high, so because we're in the open ocean. So that takes out some of the opportunities, even though people did try some technology to harness the currents. So really we have waves, and we have a lot of waves, and there are all sorts of new technologies to harness wave power. And one of them, of course, is pumping water up big distances and then running it through a turbine on the way down. We don't have much height here or space to do that. But you know, I would think perhaps 10 to 15, maybe 20% of total capacity could come from wave power. And I think we also have to remember that technology is changing so rapidly. I mean, solar now has changed last 5 years tremendously. Harnessing waves, etc., has changed dramatically too. So I think you have to bet on the fact that. Cool.
I think we better do that one again. You're drunk. That guy was really moving down.
No, that's a guy who delivers water.
Oh. Let's just wait till his beeping stops, because you'll definitely get that.
I'll just start with a new technology thing, shall I? Can you put that in?
We'll start from the top again.
All right.
Okay.
Gosh. Gotta know what I say.
Yeah, tell me about harnessing the energy of the ocean to create power in Bermuda. Is that viable?
I believe it's viable. It's not as viable here as it could be in other places because we don't have the strong currents that you have in many tidal areas. But as far as wave power and some other types of power, that's quite viable. I think we have, I would give it more or less between 10 and 20% of total power on the island. But you know, as new technologies emerge, there's a really good chance that something that could be used in Bermuda would come up quite easily. I think one of the other big issues we have in Bermuda as well is we have a very deep shelf off the island too. So mooring anything in this type of environment is not easy. We do it for science, but it takes a lot of care, and as an operational solution, it's quite difficult.
Tell us about biofuels. You're researching the use of algae right now, I understand.
That's correct. I think algae is a huge opportunity for fuel. As you probably know, all the oil we have came from algae originally. And so with new technologies, it's possible to find organisms, we believe at least, that can produce oil very quickly. And in fact, we have this database that we created in 2004 with Craig Venter, who did the human genome. We found 5 times more genes that were ever known in the world before in the ocean. So we're actually mining that database to see if we can find some organisms. I think one has to appreciate that there's quite a few algal diesel projects, especially in the United States, certainly in Brazil and places like that, but many of them have only been using freshwater and freshwater algae. And when you think we're willing to pay a lot more for water than we are gasoline, that's sort of the wrong resource. So really you have to find organisms that live in the sea, because there's tons, well, it's infinite the amount of seawater there is. And so what one could actually see is places around the world that are coastal, that have poor agriculture, such as North Africa, Somalia, areas like that, that could bring in salt water, could find very productive algae. Algae grow, they double every day. So you can produce massive ponds of algae, plenty of sunlight in those areas. The types of organisms we're looking at are the very special organisms here in the Sargasso Sea that don't need much nutrient. So we don't have to put in nitrogen and phosphorus. One of the big games with agriculture is that you add nitrogen to a field, you produce more nitrous oxide, and nitrous oxide is 200 times a greenhouse gas, more of a greenhouse gas than CO2. So you have to be very careful to what you add, because you can actually amplify the problem rather than decrease it. So we believe that algal biofuels have a big opportunity. We're doing that sort of research here. We plan on, we have 4 proposals into the Carbon Trust in Britain, and we should hear fairly soon if any of those are funded. They're £500,000 per year per project. So, and this has to be done at the right scale. And in this lab we have all the facilities for the molecular, the DNA, the sorting of cells. We have some very sophisticated equipment that we use for cell sorting. We have one of the first instruments that was created. So we're looking at this as a very profitable and interesting area.